I set out to build a really awesome, fast gaming computer that's efficient, minimal, and extremely fast. I gave myself one rule: no open loop custom liquid cooling like I'm used to doing, so let's see how I did. Whoa, that was fun to watch and fun to build. Hey guys, Tiago here with Classical Technology. Thank you for joining me for another video. Remember to subscribe if you enjoy the content, like the video, leave a comment if you have any questions or if you've done a similar build, and let's get started talking about how I put this together. Now, this is in the Fractal Design Meshify S2 case. I'm going to talk about some of the components, and then I'm going to take you guys through some of my build decisions, what I have in it, as well as some performance numbers. So if you want to do a build like this, you'll know what to expect. First, we're going to start with the case, and this is the Fractal Design Meshify S2. Now, this case was a little bit tricky for me to use because it really is a water cooling case. You have your, different areas for your reservoirs. You have a lot of radiator space. So as I was building this, I was really hurting to do an open loop, but I remembered my rule. No water cooling. We're going to do a nice straightforward build and really challenge myself to see the best that I can do. And it works out perfectly for a build like this. Number one is airflow. You have this mesh panel on the front, which lets you get a lot of air in without any issues. And then secondly, you have plenty of space in the case, not only for fans, but for the air movement to be really, really nice. Of course, you may have a little bit more empty space compared to a water loop system, but here I've mounted the radiator in the front and some fans, as well as a nice graphics card, and I think it filled out pretty nicely and it looks pretty efficient and minimal. So let's talk about my motherboard choice here. Now, this is the Asus Strix E Z390 motherboard. Now, this isn't the best motherboard for VRMs, but I'm not going to be running this CPU extremely high, so I think we should be okay. But this is just a very straightforward mainstream motherboard. I wanted to keep it nice and simple, and I think it looks pretty good as well. And I've paired it with a 9700K. Now, generally at this time, of course, almost everybody's using Ryzen, maybe a 3700X or something like that. But this 9700K was priced pretty nicely. I mean, it was $299 minus $30 at Micro Center, so about $269 for an 8-core processor that can hit 5 gigahertz. Now, since this is purely going to be a gaming build, I'm not really going to do any content creation or otherwise. If you're going to do more than gaming, I would recommend using the 36 or 3700X. Those will really give you a very similar performance to this while giving you some multi-core performance. But in this case, I'm really happy with the choice, as we really want to get very, very good gaming performance. I didn't think a 9900K really fit this build. It's a little bit overkill for what this build is, and I think for the gaming objective that we have here, a 9700K is more than enough to get pretty close performance, even to a 9900K. I have 32 gigabytes of Corsair RGB RAM. Now, the only reason I have 32 gigabytes here is just because I had these sticks laying around from a build that I just took apart. Otherwise, if I was buying RAM for this system, I would definitely go with 16 gigabytes. And RAM, as long as you get something good from like Corsair or G-Skill, you have like the Trident Z, RGB, or even the Ripjaws 5 if you just want like a blacked out look. You're pretty safe. You get from 3000 to 3600 megahertz is really, really popular in the mainstream now, and RAM prices have gone down significantly. So if I was buying it from this system, I would definitely just do 16 gigabytes of maybe 3200 megahertz RAM and call it a day. Probably 80, 90 bucks in today's prices. But I had this 32 gig of RAM lying around, so I might as well throw it in. The only benefit I will say to having 32 gigs of RAM and 4 DIMMs like this is that it looks really awesome having 4 DIMMs. That's a pure aesthetic. I mean, I'm never going to reach anywhere near this without doing like content creation. You know, gaming, you generally are going to be nicely below 16 gigabytes, but aesthetically, 4 RAM sticks look really good, especially with the beautiful RGB the Pelix system has in these Corsair DIMMs. For the SSD, I generally always like to do an M.2 SSD just because there's no wires anywhere, no cables, and they're really fast. This is an M.2 WD Black SSD. It's about 500 gigabytes. For this build, it's more than sufficient. I find it extremely fast. It's priced really nicely. It's well under $100. I think it was $80 or $90. So M.2, definitely great for gaming system. Now let's talk about the GPU. This is a 2070 Super by EVGA. This is the XC model. They have a couple of different SKUs. Buying a GPU in this bracket is actually pretty confusing. Not only do you have the competitor, such as the AMD 5700 and the 5700 XT, which are priced below this, and you're always wondering if you should get that instead or not. You also have so many different models within the 27 Super range. For example, there's the 2070 Black, the 2070 XC, and then there's the Ultra, and then there's the 4-to-1 3. So I really have to rack my head around these to see which one was the best. While the 2070 Black, you know, it's priced very nicely. It's about $499. It's usually out of stock, but that one actually has a little bit worse PCB. There's 2 different types of PCBs for these type of cards. You know, they call it the 400 and the 400A. So if you get the little bit more expensive card, you're going to be getting the better bin chip. You can just reach a little bit higher clocks. And also the cooler is going to be a little better if you get something like the XC Ultra or even the 4-to-1 3. The 4-to-1 3 is a 3-fan graphics card, so your cooling performance is going to be a lot better. And then the Ultra is just a 2.5 slot graphics card, which is a lot thicker, a bigger cooler. The XC and the Black are just a 2-slot card. This is the XC version, and I found the cooling to be pretty good. Generally, the GPU doesn't go above 73C in this case. It'll be between 69C to 73C most of the time, so that's really not too bad. For the power supply, we're using an EVGA gold power supply. I mean, these are pretty standard. The cool thing here is that we have Cable Mod Pro cables. These are the green and black mix. You know, I absolutely love these cables. Cable Mods really makes everything look extra nice, I think, compared to using, you know, just the stock PSU cables. For the CPU cooling and fans, here we're using the Corsair 115i. It's a 280 millimeter radiator. It performs really nicely, and it has some nice RGB on the CPU block, as well as the fans that it comes with. The fans that I'm using throughout the case are the Corsair LL, the light loop fans, 120 millimeter, and the 280 millimeter has the 140 millimeter version. Now these have some of the best, most vibrant RGB effects of any fans. They definitely look better than the ML version, even though the ML version has a little bit better performance in terms of the static pressure if you're putting it up against a radiator. But in terms of case fans, these move, you know, at least a decent amount of air, and they look absolutely amazing. So I put them all around the case because when this GPU gets going and it gets hot, it throws all that hot air in the case. So the case really feels like a little furnace. It gets really warm. So these fans going out from the top and the back really help to sort of dissipate and remove that heat a lot more efficiently. Now, gaming on this system has been an absolute pleasure. Even at 4K, it doesn't do as well as a 2080 Ti, of course, but the 27 Super is no slouch. In a lot of games, you can get pretty close or above 60 FPS at 4K, you know, very high settings. It's really quiet. It doesn't really make that much noise at all. As long as you have your fans and a nice speed curve, you're not really going to have any issues. The GPU is surprisingly quiet, and it really is very consistent. This computer is absolutely perfect for 1080p high refresh, like 240 hertz gaming. You'll get really high FPS. 1440p, you'll be able to get 144 hertz as well, no problem. Even ultra wide, you'll be able to get really good performance. And surprisingly, even at 4K, you can get very playable performance. Now, you're not going to get the ultimate frames per second like you would in a 2080 Ti or a Titan RTX, but it gets very respectable performance in most 4K games. So if you're looking at it for 4K, I mean, it's basically almost like last generation's 2080. It even uses a very similar PCB, so you can definitely go for this card and play 4K if it's within your budget. Let's talk a little bit about the one rule that I mentioned earlier, no water cooling. Of course, in the future, I may eventually water cool this. That's why I got this particular 2070, because the For the Win 3 has a completely different PCB, so you can't use a 2080, EK block or something of that nature. I happen to have an extra EK water block that I took out from a different build. It's actually a 2080 block, but it perfectly will fit this 2070 Super because this has a reference PCB. So that's actually pretty awesome. While they don't make a specific one for a 2070 Super like this, they do make the 2080 one that fits. So in terms of future proofing, I thought I would do that, and I think it'd come out really, really nice as well. Thank you guys for watching. I want to thank all my recent subscribers as well. If you're new here and you enjoy the content, please subscribe, leave a comment with any questions, maybe tell us about your build. And remember, subscribing is good because it helps us build the channel and have more awesome builds like this. And we post new videos every Tuesday and Friday, as well as tech news every Monday. So I'll catch you guys on the next video.